Hey kids, how are you? Welcome to Jump In. It's old Pastor Bob. Let me come down a little closer so I can see you guys better. How's everybody doing today? You can see from behind me that we are in the season of Lent, and I think I told you last week that the season of Lent, the color of the season of Lent is purple. So last week we talked about Judas, and today we're going to talk about someone whose name was Peter. And he was one of Jesus' best friends. He was a disciple. A disciple is someone that follows Jesus around and does the work that Jesus asked them to do. Judas was a disciple as well. But Peter is a very interesting character. First of all, his name is Simon, not Peter. His name is Simon, but Jesus gave him the name Peter. Let's see if anybody knows. I bet you nobody knows why he got the name Peter. I'll tell you. Because in Greek, the word Petros means rock. And Jesus says, Peter, you are my rock. He was like the number one disciple. There really wasn't a number one, but he was always like saying something, always trying to take charge of things. And he always had something to say. And he was the first disciple that Jesus called to follow him. Jesus one day was walking along the shores of the sea, and he saw some people out in a fishing boat, and he called to them. And he said, Simon and Andrew, that was Simon's brother, come and follow me. And they left their boat and they followed Jesus. Isn't that cool? They were the first disciples that were called. And by the way, you and I are all disciples today. Did you know that? We're disciples because we're followers of Jesus. Well, there's so many stories that I could tell you about Peter, but because it's Lent, I'm going to tell you a Lenten story about Jesus and Peter. First of all, Peter always had something to say, and he was right half the time. Half the time he was wrong, and half the time he was right. But this happens on a day that we call Maundy Thursday. Maundy, Maundy. Maundy, and it's from the Latin word for mandatum, which is commandment. Okay? And Jesus was gathered with his disciples, and this happens in the Gospel of John in our Bibles. And he was gathered with his disciples, and he decided that he was going to serve them. So what he did was he wrapped a towel around his waist, and he started washing their feet, as a servant would do, because in those days, people didn't really wear shoes. They had sandals and they had dirty feet. But the job of washing their feet went to the lowest person in the household. And Jesus said, I am going to be the humble servant. And he, one by one, he washed the feet of the disciples. And he got to Peter, and Peter said, you can never wash my feet, Lord, because he thought that was an insult to Jesus. And Jesus says, unless I wash your feet, you can have no part of me. And then Peter said, not just my feet, but my head and face as well. Because he wanted to be in relationship with Jesus. But then something happened, and Peter was really sorry that he did it. That next day, then they went out to a place called the Mount of Olives. And the disciples, Peter and James and John, just those three disciples, came with Jesus. Jesus had 12 regular disciples. Just Peter, James, and John came with Jesus because Jesus was praying. And he told them to stay there and while I go to pray. And Jesus went to pray, and he came back, and they were asleep. And he told Peter something that Peter would never understand. He said, Peter, I know you love me, but tonight you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. And he said, no, I can't, Lord. I would never do that. And soon after they stopped praying, the soldiers came and they took Jesus away. Judas is the one that betrayed him. Remember, that was from last week. And they took him away. And Peter sort of followed. And he followed them, and he wanted to know where they were taking Jesus. And they took him to this house, and because Jesus was in big trouble. And they took him into the house, and the maid saw Peter at the door and said, you're one of them. You're one of his disciples. He says, no, I'm not. And then again, someone else says, you're his follower. I could tell by your accent. He said, no, I'm not. I don't even know who this guy is. And then a third person said that. You're his follower. And he said, no, I'm not. And all of a sudden, the rooster crowed. So what Jesus said came true. But after Jesus was crucified, Peter became so active. And he became one of the most active disciples, telling the story about Jesus. He redeemed himself. Because sometimes we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. But because God loves us so much, God always forgives us our mistakes. So that's a story about Peter at the time of Lent. I got a million more stories about Peter. And someday maybe we can sit down and have a Peter storytelling day. You would like that? Anyway, for today, have a great jump in. Have a happy Lent. Maybe you'll be helping out with the Lenten fair a little bit after church if you're able to do that, and go to see what some of the nice things are going to be at the Lenten fair. So God bless you all, and have a great, great, great jump in. See you next week. Love you all. Bye-bye.